Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. I'm Alun and I'm here with the ever dynamic Adam.
Good morning, Alan. How are you?
I'm really great. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. We've got our coffees here. It is the morning.
Yeah, we're doing Tripology under a new caffeine regimen this morning.
We are. It's like a little breakfast show.
Yeah, I do feel a bit like that. I want papers to sort of rustle and stare ominously at the camera whilst I'm thinking about the day's events.
We can arrange that for you.
Yeah, there you go.
So you've got your coffee.
I've got my coffee.
We're going to do something kind of breakfast related, morning related today.
What did you have in mind?
What I'd like to do is find out what your typical morning routine is when waking up in a dormitory in a hostel.
Like, what is the step-by-step process that I undergo when I've gone to sleep in a hostel and then, as sure as day comes after dawn, what do I do when I wake up?
I think so, because we haven't stayed in a hostel together. Have lots of experience staying in hostels, obviously, but
Always separately.
There are rumours that in the near future we might be travelling together. So I need to know what sort of things, what your habits are, just to make sure that we're aligned.
Okay, so you're basically trying to get ahead of any problems that might occur. If I wake up in a hostel and do something outrageous, you're like, at least I was prepared.
Yeah, I mean, I think you found me out. I was trying to frame this in a different way, and maybe it's quite typical that when you're travelling, when you're backpacking, you will have a morning routine in order to be able to achieve everything of your day. But what I really want to know is, what do you like in the morning, mate?
Okay, what am I like in the morning? Well, you know from working on the farm with me that I'm not really a morning person.
You know, those headphones that you're wearing now, I seem to remember me being quite sprightly and always really happy to see you, really eager to get out on the farm with you and do some work.
Yeah.
And you would just be in your own headphones in, and your hood was up a lot of the time as well. It was quite cold, to be fair to you, but I mean...
Yeah, you once told me you find me least attractive in the morning on the farm. You said honestly, you don't have any charisma in the morning.
No, it took you a while to get going.
Yeah, that's true.
It's understandable. I mean, what was it like when you first arrived on the farm? It was probably in the minus numbers in the morning, and we just had. Once you've done those jobs a few times, we had a number of chores we had to get ticked off, and the quicker that we got them done, the sooner we had breakfast.
Yeah, well, we'd wake up on the farm out in blustery cold conditions, like tick off a number of chores. And because you had another job not on the farm, I feel like the list of my chores got sort of longer and more brutal every day, to the point where it chalked up to you just feed the horses and then go to work. I was like in the chicken coop picking up all the poo. So yeah, I mean, definitely I had some rough mornings on that farm for sure.
That's the story of our relationship, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
Me writing off the fruits of your work. Oh my god.
No, definitely not. But it's an interesting question, I think, because hostels, for a lot of people, it's like the first time where other people who you're not in an intimate relationship with, or they're not family or anything, are exposed to your morning routine.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have time to put on your best self prior to meeting other people.
No, that's true. That is true. And you have to maybe make some sacrifices, or just realize that everything that you want to achieve in the morning isn't maybe available to you. There are certain things that you have to negotiate. There are going to be at least usually 6-8 other people in your room that either will or won't be asleep when you wake up. So it's a tricky one, living with other people, but I feel like it's a great sort of formative experience. It can give you good experience if you then want to, in later life, live in shared accommodation.
Yeah, and like with all things, the preparation, the process of the morning routine starts really the night before. So I'll answer your question with a question. Are you the sort of person, I feel like there's two types of backpacker in hostels.
Right.
Do you leave your bunk bed open, exposed, or do you wrap like a towel around the upper bunk? There's a process. Some of our listeners might not know. Some of them might. A lot of people take a towel, a travel towel, or the towel given to them by the hostel, or sometimes even another bed sheet that they'll request.
Yeah.
And they'll tuck it into the bunk above them and wrap it all the way around their bed to provide like almost a curtain around their bunk bed. Is that something you do or no?
No, I've never done that.
Never.
At all. No. I mean, even if sometimes there's like a curtain, isn't there? Like a very thin sort of piece of fabric that you can draw across the bed.
Occasionally.
And if that's an option, then sure.
You leave it
why not?
open.
But I don't know. Maybe I think that's almost like you might as well just be wearing a sign that says "Do not disturb"
Yes.
kind of thing. And not everyone in a dorm wants you to speak to them all the time.
It's interesting though, because it's totally acceptable not to cover up your bunk bed. Like,
Yeah.
I would say it's more common not to than to do it. But if they provide like a rail, it would be psychotic not to use the rail, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. I mean, I'm not the sort of person that's going to go to reception and ask for a separate sheet so that I can completely enclose my living quarters when I'm already in a dorm. I mean, if I wanted that much privacy, I'd get a private room.
Yeah, I mean, I asked because when I was in Calgary, just staying in a hostel to combat the layover,
Yeah.
the person across the way from me fortified their bunk bed with such a litany of sheets and towels and all that stuff. They had like 3-ply sheetage going all the way around the outside.
Jesus.
They were ensconced within there like a sarcophagus.
So you're not that sort of person either then. If it's available to you, you use it, but you're not going to rig up some sort of adult den.
I have done in a couple of occasions, and nothing specific. Like, I've never thought, maybe if the hostel room struck me as particularly bright. Often, frankly, if I have a towel that I want drying,
Yeah.
I'll put that up anyway.
Yeah,
hang it
that's
in the
normal.
same way, and therefore that provides a little bit of shelter. So often my travel towel is hanging draped down across my bunk bed, providing the concept of shelter.
Yeah, I think that's fairly normal. I mean, there have been times when I've used the ladder as a drying rack for my towel.
Right.
And I was in a hostel in BC, actually, not that long ago. And it was slightly further north. And I don't know whether this could be deemed as passive aggressive, but there wasn't someone sleeping on the top bunk. The person that was going to have that bunk hadn't checked in when I checked in.
Yeah.
And all I'd done is just folded the towel in half and hung it over one of the rungs on the ladder. And then when I came back after going for a walk, it was just on my bed, wet, in like a pile, just sort of scrumpled up on my pillow, half of my pillow and on the sheets. And I thought, oh, that's a bit rough.
Bang out of order, that.
I would have left it.
There's a lot of passive-aggressive things that people do out of ignorance in hostels, though. One time, I didn't realise there was like a locker underneath the bed. Sometimes that's the case.
Yeah.
And I used up the whole locker system. And it was only upon checking out that I realised that locker had like 2 sides, one for the upper bunk and one for the bottom bunk. And I was just using... And the person on the bunk above me had to just like put their stuff to the side. I was totally ignorant of it. But he must have thought I was being really like...
Yeah, completely compromising the security of their personal belongings.
But don't have shared lockers in a hostel also.
Oh, yeah, it was completely shared. So
Well,
you also had access to his...
It had like a partition line, but it wasn't a good system.
No, yeah, maybe leave that. That's not fair. So the night before, and just to your point, what I'll do is I will usually prepare the clothes I'm going to wear the following day, the night before. So they're all sort of folded up all neatly in a pile and tucked in a corner of the bed.
Okay, why did you start doing that, do you think?
So I can create as little noise and disturbances as possible the morning after, because this leads me to my next point. I like being the first one up, the first one out the door.
Okay, is that because you are an early riser anyway?
Just remember that, Alan. I like being the first one up and the first one out the door.
I have to wait in the hostel.
with us travelling in mind, I like being the first one up and the first one out the door.
I've been awake for 2 hours, but Adam likes to be the first one, so I'm just staying in bed. Yeah, I mean, I think that's very hospitable of you, very kind of you to lay your things out so you don't make noise. I do that if like I've got an early flight or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make sure I don't wake people up as I leave. Oftentimes I'll just take my bag out of the room and pull my clothes out in the hallway or something like that. I've done that before a few times.
Yeah, I think that's the bare minimum you can do, really.
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah. No, but for the consideration of others, there are lots of people that are perfectly comfortable with just rustling through their shit for 45 minutes while everyone else is trying to sleep.
Hostel faux pas, yeah.
It's a bit out of order, that, isn't it, really? The suitcase with the zip. Fuck those guys.
Yeah, I'd say so. Zippage is not a good thing in a hostel. So yeah, it sounds like you maybe are a bit more of a structured approach to me. I mean, you asked me what my morning routine is. Really, I mean, I wake up, I go for a shower, flip-flops on, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
Flip-flops in the shower, an absolute paramount in hostels. Do you agree? Are you a flip-flop in the shower user?
I'd love to say I am, but I don't mind too much if I'm not wearing flip-flops.
So I'm going to say this now. I actually just think that's tangibly wrong.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think it's open for debate in the travel space. I think you should wear it because there might be someone like you prior who has athlete's foot or something. That's what undid you in Qatar.
That's the opposite of what I want when I'm traveling.
Exactly.
So maybe I'll start employing that. I'll be the first one to take your advice, and from now on, I will wear flip-flops in the shower.
Wear flip-flops in the shower in hostels. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
It doesn't matter how clean the hostel is, how clean you are, and how clean everyone else is. It's just flip-flops are a must.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got flip-flops with me, and I often do wear them in the shower, but I won't not have a shower if I've forgotten my flip-flops or something.
Right, yeah. No, I think it's one of my travel top tip essentials.
Okay, cool. So shower first thing on the card then?
Yeah, I'm someone who likes to shower first. Although in really hot climates, I'll shower before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Because if I'm showering once a day, I'd rather be clean to sleep and then wake up and have my day. Showering in the morning, oftentimes you are sweaty and humid the second you go anywhere anyway. So showering in the morning's redundant.
Have you already clocked how many people roughly are staying in the hostel and how many showers there might be available to you in the morning?
All that sort of research is done the night before upon checking in.
How much available hot water is there going to be? Although we're not opposed to cold showers.
Yeah, that's true. Cold showers are good. But I'm someone who, I drink a lot of water. I drink water in the night a lot, which means often that I get up and go for a pee.
You're one of those guys with the crinkly plastic bottles, are you?
No, I have a wonderful little bottle. It's completely silent.
Really? Is it a bag or a bottle?
It's like it's a rollable water bottle, yeah? Packs that down small. But I'll often have to journey from the hostel room to go to the toilet in the night.
Oh, okay.
Which is a nightmare, by the way.
It is, yeah, I would say now we're seeing more and more, it's more and more common to have a key locking system that you scan. And then when you scan the key with the card, it does this like awful noise that goes, and you hear the mechanism inside the door opening like it's some sort of Fort Knox thing, and no one's awake of it.
Sometimes it beeps and makes like a tune as well. It's like, you're in, welcome. Yeah, so that's common, isn't it now? You have those tags around your wrist, you scan in. Yeah, it's a nightmare. And some hostels are not designed for like nighttime bathroom runs.
No, they're not. And it's, well, it sounds like that's something that you're going to have to deal with going forward, mate.
I mean, I've stayed in some really out of the way hostels. I've stayed in a hostel before where you had to go outside to get to the bathroom. I had to leave the block that I was sleeping in and like cross the hall, like cross over like a garden area and then into a neighbouring building to go to the bathroom in the night. I mean, at that point, you're awake.
Could you not have just done a cheeky wee in the garden?
Yeah, maybe, but
I've done that before.
Respectful.
Yeah. Disrespect. Yeah, I've done that before when it's been quite a long journey to the toilet and I'm able to just maybe find a garden or a bush or a sort of round the back of a shack or whatever.
In a hostel?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, well, you are Tripology's resident renegade, so I mean, it's good to do that. Then, of course, after you've done all your ablutions, you've chosen to shower or not. It's the breakfast, isn't it?
It
Hostel
is.
free breakfast.
Yeah, so my morning usually, or how early I get up at least, is usually governed by the breakfast. So I think it's probably a good point to leave this section of the podcast.
Yeah, just take a brief break from it, because I don't know about you, I'm getting very excited by the concept of breakfast. It's almost too much for me.
We should have eaten before recording.
Yeah, we're drinking coffee, we've not eaten, we're a bit hungry, and I think it's probably, with all that in mind, I mean, Buddhism's known for its occasional fasting. Let's go on a brief meditation break. I mean, we talk of breakfasts, we talk of the free hostel breakfast that time, usually incorrigibly early, isn't it? It's like, we do a free breakfast. It's from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. If you want it, come get it.
Yeah, I like that though.
Yeah.
The ones I don't like is the breakfast where they start at 9.
Okay.
I think why can't I have food earlier than that? I've got a whole day to go out and do stuff. I don't want to be waiting here for the free breakfast. And sometimes free breakfast can actually change whether you book a hostel or not, can't it? It's quite a lucrative offer.
You're insufferably awake in the mornings, I think.
Insufferably?
Yeah, like you're very on in the morning. I think you're ready for the day.
Yeah. I like it. I go to bed thinking, oh God, I just can't wait until 6 a.m. until I get up. So the free breakfast for me is a big one. And if the free breakfast starts at 8, I'll be up at 7:30 to make sure I'm there for 8. If it starts at 6, I'll be up at 5:30. Like, that's what I mean by being governed by the first hour of the free breakfast. I want to be there when the staff member's cutting up the fruit.
Okay, watching him.
Can I help myself yet? Or
yeah, well, I know from personal experience.
Insufferable, yeah, no, I understand what you mean.
Well, yeah, you're someone who often like goes and tells people how they can make a drink slightly better and all that stuff. Do you do that with the fruit? Oh, if you cut a kiwi long ways, it actually increases the potassium.
I don't know if you've noted, but those 2 slices of watermelon aren't exactly the same size.
Yeah, insufferable. Yeah. So, any notable free breakfast? What do you like from a free breakfast? Because oftentimes it's toast and spread, isn't it?
It is. That speaks to a lot of free breakfasts. And I know that the hostel is trying to make a margin, of course. They are giving it for free. It's not something they have to do. But quite often it will just be glow-in-the-dark white bread that never goes off and some really cheap processed peanut butter.
Yeah.
And I'm not really into that, unfortunately.
It's region dependent though, right? Because in Asia, the bog standard like free breakfast is like toast and peanut butter, white bread, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But if you go to all over South America, there's dulce de leche, right?
Right.
Do you know what dulce de leche is?
I do.
I mean, you can make the translation in your head, right?
Yeah.
Sweet with milk.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a very kind of sticky, treacly spread.
Right, okay, yeah. Is it almost like caramel?
Yeah. And every hostel that you check in, like the person behind reception will go, and in the morning we have free breakfast at Dulce de Leche. Do you know what Dulce de Leche is? They all like sell you on the Dulce de Leche, and like if you've been in South America for any significant time, you're like, yes, I know what it is. It replaces the standard breakfast fare as the new spread on the block.
Right. Yeah, it's, for me, the best free breakfast I've ever had was when I was in a hostel in Jakarta. And we might have even spoken about this hostel before.
Yeah.
Nasi goreng.
Really?
Unlimited.
So talk the listener through what that is.
Well, within reason, they say you can have more if you like. You can go back for seconds.
Yeah.
Don't take the piss.
No, I don't mean talk them through what unlimited means. I mean talk them through what nasi goreng is.
Well, it's kind of a fried rice dish, isn't it?
Yes.
With a few spices and maybe some vegetables in there. They like to put an egg on top often. Yeah. I do also sometimes flirt with the nasi lemak.
Oh, what's that?
So usually that will also have a fried chicken sort of drumstick or wing. And it can also have these really cool little side sort of condiment things. It'll be like salty peanuts with dried anchovies or very small fish.
Yeah.
I like all that. I think that's a really good breakfast.
That is a good breakfast, yeah. I mean, Jakarta wins the prize for me for the best, cheapest hostel I've ever stayed in as well.
Wow.
It was $5 a night. It had like locking bed dormitory, like you sleep in like a cabin, like that had an electronic door.
Really? What, like a capsule?
Personal capsule, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
It had a kitchen on site, you could order food. It had a cinema.
Wow.
It had a gymnasium. It had a rooftop bar, free breakfast, all that stuff. So it might have been the same one, maybe.
It could have been. The kind of deliberation I feel in the morning when I'm at a hostel is if the breakfast is free and it's passable, I do want to eat something before I go out. But I do also know that the first thing I'm going to do when I leave the hostel is go and get more food.
Right.
So, is it an unnecessary intake of calories for not that much gain if I know that I'm just about to go and get a lot more food?
It depends on the quality of the free breakfast, frankly, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. But I think the reason why sometimes it takes me a long time to decide is because it's free. So I think I'd be a fool not to benefit from a free breakfast. But is it something you actually want, Adam? Oh, but it is free though.
Yeah, it is free, and I'm guilty of absolutely pounding the coffee because, like, sometimes I drink such an incorrigible amount of coffee in the morning because it's free.
Yeah.
That I'm like a ball of anxiety by the time I leave the hostel. Oh God.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. Quite often around Europe and things, you might have some baked goods.
Yes.
You know, if you go to hostels in France, for example, viennoiserie, which is basically the name used to incorporate, I guess, all sort of pastries. Your croissant, your pain au chocolat, or as we say in England, chocolate croissant.
Yep. That's what we say in England. Have you ever been to a hostel that really sells itself on the free breakfast? Like, that's the main thing. If you go into the reviews in hostel world, like all of them are saying, "Oh, Gustavo makes the most wonderful banana pancakes every morning." And
Yeah,
like,
I've
that's
heard
the
that.
selling point.
Yeah, completely. Often they do live up to expectations.
Yeah.
There are some, but then you don't want to get there too late. And I don't know. I've stayed in some hostels that are really, really big. I'm trying to remember one now. I think it was in Vietnam somewhere. Where was it? Might have been Hoi An. Hoi An, something to do with the sun. If you're listening to this now, listener, send us an email if you stayed in the same hostel.
Hoi An, something to do with the sun.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the free breakfast is fantastic, but it's
Yeah.
also a massive hostel.
So I stayed, I think it was in Hoi An as well, a hostel where they made such a vibe of the breakfast. You could submit on a little piece of paper the songs that you wanted to play over breakfast, right? So people would go the night before and write down like, oh, I want to hear Stairway to Heaven, or I want to hear Here Comes the Sun. People were just writing down different tunes. And then the morning would be like a right jam session of everyone hearing their favourite songs on the speaker system all loud.
Jam session. Great use of words. Like that.
So there's ways that people vibe up the hostel morning experience. And there was like speakers in the bathroom, so people were showering all to the same music. So the hostel became like every morning it was sort of brightened up in that way, you know?
That is a great energy. Yeah, I do remember at this hostel in particular, having the breakfast as sort of a communal activity. It was something that people got really excited about. You know, there would be people that maybe you met at the swimming pool the day before. And it's like, oh, what time are you getting up for the breakfast tomorrow? It became like the first thing that everyone wanted to do, a shared activity for the day.
There's a dark side to it all, though, because I once stayed in an hostel in Colombia where their main selling point was the banana pancakes, right? They had a system where you would go and collect like a little number, and they would cook the banana pancakes, and then they would like place the banana pancake with your number next to it.
Right.
But like the numbers were just loose. So they would place like dishes out and they'd be like, oh, this is banana pancake for number 41. This is banana pancake for number 42. But like they would blow away and get lost and stuff. There was such brawls over those banana pancakes, hungover travellers going on, I'm 41, I'm 43, but this is 43, but I've not had mine and I'm 2 before you. Oh. It was a nightmare every morning.
Oh no, they need
I
to
went
change
to
the
pick
system.
up some banana pancakes and some girl came up to me and went, but those are mine. I was like, I'm
Where's she
really
from?
sorry. She was from everywhere.
I like that a lot. I like it a lot. But I mean, from a hostel's perspective, it'd be amazing one day to know more and more about this and the runnings of a hostel. But I think what they're trying to do there is offer something within sort of maybe sort of an area that they can still make a margin. So it would be quite nice to know what goes on. What would you offer if you were running a hostel and you were offering a free breakfast for your guests? What sort of thing would you like to offer them?
Goodness me. I mean, I'm not a tripology resident foodie and I'm not a chef. I mean, undeniably,
You don't have to cook it.
bread and cereals.
You own the hostel.
Yeah. I mean, added value, I think I'd like to include some protein, like eggs and things like that. Do you know what I would do? A huge shakshuka.
Yeah.
I would get a
The
wok.
aforementioned shakshuka.
Yeah, I think shakshuka is the optimal hostel breakfast. I love it when there's a guy or a girl in a hostel who say like, "Is everyone who's up for the shakshuka?" And they just start preparing it. I would have a huge wok the size of a flat screen TV
Yeah.
on a fire pit in the middle of the hostel, and I would just make huge shakshuka, and everyone can just come and grab a slice. What about you? What would you have?
The problem is that doesn't cater to all tastes, does it? Because some people don't eat eggs. So there has to be fruit, I think, on offer.
They can have the bread and the jam. I mean, we're already.
What about the people who are gluten intolerant?
They can have the gluten-free bread. People with celiac disease, yeah, I don't know. It's complicated, but I mean, it's difficult to cater to everyone, isn't it? That's just the nature of life. What would you do then? What dish have you got in mind that caters to people with celiacs, people who don't like eggs, and people who are just damn hungry?
Yeah, nasi goreng minus the egg.
Yeah, okay.
No, I think the best breakfast I've ever had was probably a Turkish breakfast. So this is years ago. I mean, I'm very lucky. I've been to Turkey many times, and when I was very young, where I used to go to Turkey, about 45 minutes outside of the town that me and my family used to go to, there was this lovely village restaurant. It was a real sort of local hotspot, and really tucked away, lovely olive grove, sort of. You can imagine it's very shady and things, and you'd sit out on this terrace, lovely open fire pit, and amazing place. And then you would basically order the breakfast based on how many people were in your group. So it was a set breakfast, always came with the same things. If there was only 2 of you, they bring 2 people's worth of food. And if there were a group of 8 of you, they bring the same breakfast, but for 8 people in terms of the quantity.
Okay.
Unlimited tea, unlimited bread. But if you've never had a Turkish breakfast, mate, I mean, it's a real thing to behold.
I think I've had one with you in St. Albert, in Alberta.
Yeah, similar. I quite like a salty breakfast. I mean, I'm, looking at the camera.
Yeah, youtube.com/tripologypodcast.
Adam indulges in a salty breakfast. But, all your eggs and your olives and is olives a bit too much, do you think, in the morning?
No, I like it. I mean, yeah.
That'll kick you into gear.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, mate, if I have a little olive and a cup of coffee, I'm rearing to go. I'm ready to see temples. I'm ready to see landmarks. I'm ready to socialise.
But I'm a bit of a picker when it comes to food. I like there to be, 10, 12 plates that I can then just spend my time eating and taking from, have a bit of a chit chat, because inevitably at the free breakfast in the hostel, you're going to end up chatting to a fellow backpacker. And I've been known to just spend 3 hours of my morning previously allocated to temples or city walks or what have you. And all of a sudden you just start having an interesting chat with someone you've never met, and the whole morning goes out the window anyway.
Well, that's it. You've started this episode claiming that you're going to talk about morning routine. It's been a lot of focus around the breakfast, but really, I suppose the coolest thing about the morning in a hostel after you've had that shower and after you've had that free breakfast is the social aspect. So I think a lot of my most galvanized cool friendship groups have begun around the breakfast table. The free breakfast in a hostel is a central focus point where all the travelers in the hostel come and in a sober way communicate and talk to one another, make plans, that sort of thing. Gone is the bacchanalian events that happen in the evening where people are playing cards, talking about how much they fancy each other and what they want to do that evening. But in the morning, everyone's like, oh, I really want to hike up that mountain. I really want to go and see that place. Do you want to come too? How are you getting to the next location? Are you taking that bus? Oh, I might take that bus, or I might rent a motorcycle. These are the sort of conversations that happen over the breakfast table. So oftentimes, sat down having a free breakfast in the morning is where I've had the opportunities to say to people, hey, do you want to form a little travel group and go to this place? That's the coolest thing about it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it'd be interesting to get your take on this, because you are someone I look up to, and yeah, someone I admire. I'd like to learn from as a fellow traveller.
Okay.
I think I put too much pressure on the morning and the time of day, because I basically fixate on like a 6 a.m. start, a 7 o'clock start. And if I deviate from that, I think, I'm losing time.
Oh, interesting.
And that sets me off, in probably the wrong sort of way. I'm thinking, oh, I could have done this, I should have done that. I wonder if I'd started earlier, I would have achieved more. And I mean, how do I relax?
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad to have a routine, but I think if you travel on instinct a little bit, I think there's always, you've seen the film Groundhog Day or not?
I've not seen any films, Alan. Okay. You know this about me.
So in Groundhog Day, basically, he repeats the same day again and again and again until he gets it perfect. He achieves the optimal day.
Right.
And I often think of every day has multiple possibilities and multiple ways that you could play it. And really, there is an optimal way to play the day. And leaving at 6 might be the optimal way, or it might not be. There might be someone that you could meet at 9 that's sitting having a little sip of coffee in the hostel lobby, and you'll never know what the right way is. But I think you've just got to try and play each day as best you can according to your own heart and your own instincts. So there's been times where I've just meandered down and sat solemnly with my headphones in and nothing's happened. And I think, well, maybe that's not the best way to have done that, but it's what I needed that day. And there's other times where I'm feeling energized and I go up and, hey, I see you're eating nasi goreng. Do you want to go to a temple with me? It all depends, man. I think that you just play it by your heart.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. Maybe slightly difficult for someone like me to employ, because if it gets to mid-morning and I've not done anything, I do feel like I've wasted time. And maybe that's in part because if you go traveling somewhere and you haven't got that much time, like Mexico City when I was there for 11 days, that's enough time to see a good chunk of the city. Is it enough time to have a really relaxed approach every day, though?
Yeah, but is that a
Arguably not.
symptom of like short-term travel?
Yeah, that's what I'm alluding to. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's if you've got an one-way ticket, it's open-ended, you've got enough funds in the bank or whatever, and you can just take your time doing whatever you want every day. Maybe there's far less pressure on each day.
I think I'm much happier than you to take a week off traveling during travel and not do all that much. I
Yeah.
think that is what creates this sustainable travel mindset. So there'll be times, like there has been times, where I've just checked into a hostel for a week and committed not to do or see anything during that week. It never happens like that.
No.
Because I always end up going, oh, I feel like I want to see something that day. But to remove the pressure of seeing things, to remove the pressure of going anywhere new, helps me when I'm traveling, and I can focus on myself and focus on my relationships with other people during that time.
Yeah, I also think it's quite important if you do like to travel the way that we do. I always enter a place thinking, is this somewhere I could live?
Yeah.
And if you're always doing touristic activities every day and jam packing your day full of lots of things, then you don't really sink into a routine that is similar to what it would be like if you lived there. So I quite like getting up early, going sitting by the side of the road with a coffee and just watching the world go by, because that's something I would do of a morning if I lived there.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's value in that as well. There is no right way to travel. One of my favorite little hostel morning experiences was in a place called Bariloche, where the breakfast table was like a circle and all the food items were in the middle and there was coffee and everyone sat around there every morning. And that was like the ultimate slow, relaxed, social environment. And one of my favorite travel groups ever was formed in that environment. That hostel made it very easy to meet people and form these groups in a very relaxed setting. And I think that some hostels try and force that with like, oh, it's beer pong on Friday, make friends. Whereas this hostel just said, the way to do it is make the breakfast table a circle.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that idea. And like you were just saying about forming relationships in the morning and things, you don't know where that kind of friendship can lead. I do think that's really important. It's almost symbolic, isn't it, the breakfast table in some ways?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. But like I say, there's nothing wrong with you getting up at 6 a.m. before anyone else wakes up and going and have a coffee on the side of the road, because that makes you feel like you're living in a place either. It's just, I'll miss things by not being up at 6 in the morning, and you'll miss things by not being in the hostel. And you can't have a 100% 360 look about all the possibilities that could happen. Then you'd be Dr. Manhattan or something, and that's impossible.
Yeah, well, let's round things off then by me asking the ultimate question. Do you think that in the morning we could align our routines? Do you think it's possible?
I mean, we can't perfectly align them, Adam, because, I'm not getting up at 6 a.m. No, of course. I think there's place for, if you're traveling with someone.
I'm gonna wait until you get up for your midnight wee.
Okay, we're up, are we?
This is it. Get your pants on.
I think that when you're traveling with someone, you incorporate them into your routine anyway, right?
You have to. Yeah, you have to kind of move to other people's beats every now and again, and yeah, it's one of the sacrifices, if you can call it that. Maybe that's unfair, of traveling with a significant other, or on your own, or in a group.
I think I'm really adaptable, and it matters more to me what other people are comfortable with than it does what I'm comfortable with. And I've heard other people hear that and be like, oh, is that not just being people pleasing? Is that not just like, giving up your own wants in order to... I'm not trying to make it sound like this selfless thing. It's just if someone wants to watch a movie, I'm happier with it being the movie that they want to watch than it being the movie that I want to watch at the expense of their enjoyment. Do you know what I mean? And the same would go for a morning routine. If it would make you really happy to get up an hour earlier than I normally would, I'm willing to make that sacrifice just because I'm never going to care as much about something. I'm so not rigid with that sort of thing.
Okay. All right. Well, that bodes well. That's really promising.
Yeah, and that's not a matter of placation. It's just I think in general, I don't care as much about rigidity.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. I think that's a lovely place to wrap it up. Have you still got some coffee left?
I've got a tiny bit, mate, but that's it, isn't it? I guess the takeaway is adaptability, friendship, kindness, and free breakfasts here on Tripology Podcast. I'm enjoying being here. I'm enjoying talking to you. I'm enjoying talking to you, the listening audience. We've got a Patreon. It's patreon.com/tripologypodcast. We've got a YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@tripologypodcast.
And we've got on Instagram @tripologypodcast.
Yeah.
Chuck us a follow.
And if you have travel stories, questions, comments, things you want to say about travel writ large, you can send us an email.
It's tripologypodcast@gmail.com.
So easy, so memorable. You'll get a reply from either me or Adam. One of us will reply, won't we?
Yeah. I'd like it to be me.
Yeah, you can reply if you want. Yeah, of course.
Take some work off your plate.
No problem. Look, I've been looking out over the horizon recently because I've noticed the grey clouds of the present looming ever ominous. But in the future, next week, a bright little peeking bit of sunlight coming over the top of a hill. Let's head towards that, steer the Tripology ship, the HMS Tripology, face the bow towards that bright sunlight and head there now. Will you come with me, Adam?
Are you going to finish that banana pancake?
Oh, I'm already halfway through it and I'm not even a little bit full.
Let's get there now.
Yeah, let's go. Bye!